in action, but I did forget to set my mic up, so there may be a microphone in shop, I'm not sure. This is going to be a problem. Hey, you know, I'm back home. I had to completely rebuild my setup, so could be issues. You're gonna have to deal with it. Okay? It's gonna be alright. We're gonna get through this together. I think, okay, I'm gonna kick it off at 3. I'm gonna stick to the sketch. We will start at 3 PM. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. Check that out. Check that out. Hopefully I'm coming through okay at a decent volume. I hope. Let me know if I'm not, let me know if you can't hear me when I start, which will be now. Good afternoon and welcome to the Enemy Stream, where we're going to be covering all the latest in gaming news. Let me just check my camera. Yeah, setup's alright, so I'm back home. Hey, I'm back home. I am no longer operating out of a very old musty basement. So I think the setup's alright. If you can hear me okay, great. If you can't, let me know in the chat to turn volume up. But yeah, so back home. It's good to be back. In a sense, I mean, I don't live in a great place. So I've gone from a very nice location with not a great setup to a place with a great setup, but it's not the best of locations. But hey, you know, we take what we can get. We're turning lemons into lemonade here. And we're going to be covering, as always on the Enemy Stream, we're going to be covering the gaming news. Honestly, I'm mostly going to be covering stuff from last week. This is the problem with doing a gaming news show on Monday, is not a whole lot of shit gets announced. So I just sort of got to pick up whatever was leaked out towards the end of last week. I'm going to continue with a more ad hoc flow. Previously, I've only had like a couple of tabs and I've tried of news stories, and I've tried to do this within like an hour. I'm still sticking to an hour, but I'm going to try be a bit more flowy and just natural with it. And if anybody has any comments they want to drop in the chat, like I will try and look up at my other monitor, read them and respond and all that good stuff. So before jumping into things, I just want to remind you that we do live stream every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, right now at 3 PM BST. I'm playing around with maybe changing that time, but we go out on Twitch, we go out on YouTube, looking at Kick maybe as well, so you can follow us on all those platforms. And definitely make sure to follow us on YouTube and TikTok, because we're going to be posting a lot more on the development of our Spider-Man game. Spoilers, we're going to call it Project Web for now. I was meant to reveal that in a TikTok, but hey, you guys are getting it first for watching me. So our Spider-Man VR game, which is not Spider-Man VR, because we don't want to get wrecked by Disney, Project Web, we're going to be posting a lot more updates on that. We're going to work towards getting that as a playable build on Steam. Potentially Quest 2 as well, but we're doing all sorts of crazy stuff with the game modes, with weapons, loads of really cool things are going into it, so make sure to check that out on TikTok and YouTube by following us, by looking up Enemy Team Games, or just at Enemy Team. Go, links in the bio, everything, there's links around this video, go check that out there. Anyway, right, that's the shilling done, shilling portion of the show done. Let's jump into things. So, I want to kick things off with this story on the top-selling game right now on Steam is this 254-player FPS made by 4 people. Ooh la la, Battlebit Remastered, which is a huge-scale Modern Warfare game for $15. Yeah, and it's sort of, yes, I mean, people, as this article says, it kind of looks like a Roblox game, but it's absolutely wrecking the competition right now. It's not, it's come out of, like, absolute left field. This isn't something that, I think this has been being developed for a number of years. So let me be clear, this is very much, what we're looking at is, like, tip of the iceberg. You know, that analogy of, like, what you see as the success above the water is actually masking, like, years and years of pain and strife and grief below the waters. But relatively speaking, this has come out of nowhere for most people. And as this article says, it's easy to see why it's an instant success. It's remarkably fun. I like how this calls it a little FPS when it's a 256-player, 254-player Battlefield competitor with vehicles, classes, as far as I can tell, great netcode, tons of features. It's only an early access, but, you know, establishment media who shill for the AAAs have to go, well, it's a little thing. Oh, look at this, it's doing all right. And it's like, actually, the impact of this game is far, far greater than you would imagine. Proximity chat, sorry, buildable defensive structures. Yeah, what a little tiny-ass game. And it's very accessible to hop in and play, but harder core than most multiplayer shooters. But yeah, sure, just a little thing, I guess. And as this article says, and as you can read in the reviews, which we'll jump into in a second on Steam, so far it just works. You've got 28,000 people currently trying to play it, despite that relatively smooth launch. And if we just jump actually into, we check out the Steam page, we've got almost 10,000 positive reviews. My calculation on this is, usually that represents about 5% of the player base. So you're actually looking at what, like 100,000 people have, at this point, probably accessed the game in one form or another. You know, maybe it's closer to 50, maybe it could be closer to 150. Either way, those are huge numbers. Very positive reviews. And when you check out what people are saying, they go, one, you know, people are playing playing the game correctly. They're not playing in like a toxic manner. Commending the netcode. Insane amounts of content for $15. Puts AAA devs for shame. Don't let the graphics dissuade. This is everything that we've wanted from a Battlefield game for years. I'm a big Battlefield fan, at least like old school Battlefield. So that's great to hear. I absolutely I'm going to be buying this and like playing it on stream, no doubt. Maybe later tonight. I might do a stream on this later tonight or tomorrow. See how I feel. But let's just check out who these guys are. So you go to their website, immediately they're just making easily accessible, showing you exactly how to play, showing all the vehicles and everything. Awesome, great stuff. If we head over to, and I love this as well, like everyone's asking them like how many games companies would actually put in their FAQ like, is this Roblox? And just like, no. There's something, this sounds like a kind of minor point, but it's so important that when you engage with any of these like AAA to AA brands, they're so corporate, they're so fake, they're so like legally protective of themselves. They make sure to not do anything that makes them seem, what would you call it, human, I guess, like, what's the word, like, not irrefutable, but they're perfect. They have to put out this guise that they're perfect. And these guys come out and they're just like, nah, you know, this game isn't Roblox. What's the release model? Well, we're putting it out for $15. We don't have any plans to do microtransactions. And it's like you instantly believe and trust these guys, like implicitly, by how they're presenting themselves and how they're talking. Compared to, say, when Ubisoft dropped, I've already forgotten the name, but Ubisoft dropped a beta or an early access to a multiplayer shooter that combines all of their different IPs, and it's free to play, but they've said, and don't worry, it's not going to have any microtransactions, it's not going to be, well, it's going to have microtransactions, but it's not going to be pay to win. And everyone in the comments is going, yeah, it's going to become pay to win then, right? Like, you're lying to us. So this is so important that what we're trying to do with Enemy Team and what we're hoping to see with other people out in the wider world of gaming, and I believe we're seeing with Battlebit, is this kind of new, I say new approach, it's kind of a very old school approach to not only making games, but how you market them. And it's just being real. It's being honest. I mean, we've been doing this with Project Web. We've had people saying, well, what platform is this coming out on? And what's the price point and all this? And my answer to all these questions so far has been like, I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you right now. Like, it's a prototype. Is it gonna be a free game? Probably not. We're probably gonna charge you somewhere in the realm of $15 to $50, depending on how big or expansive the game is. It could be a free-to-play game. It probably won't be because we don't like that sales model. Even though it does make it easier for people to access the game, it also opens up a lot of other problems, like we don't make money, so we can't eat. And people can, if they cheat and we ban them, they can just make a new account because they can get the game for free, etc., etc. So, like, this approach is a hell of a lot more. It's less glossy, it's less fancy. It's not, these guys aren't stood on some big stage doing the big AAA pitch with the CG trailer, and yet they've been able to onboard 100,000 people, as far as I can tell, concurrent player base of 28,000 people playing very, very easily with, I assume, an incredibly small marketing budget. So it's all to say, being human and being honest goes a long way when you live in a world of total dishonesty. And I wanted to just also show you, if you go and meet the team, let's just load this page up. I mean, again, what a to the average person, or it's like the average person in the games industry go, what a crazy presentation that you're just using, like, probably your Discord profile pictures. But look, this game is being made by almost no people, and they're just being honest and human about it. And I love this, the guy at the top, Sergeant Okie Dokie, working alongside Larry the Duck. He says, on a more serious note, optimization fanatic and true hardcore fan of anything related to shooter games, every decision he takes always comes with the thought of, if I would play this, would I enjoy it? And that very much resonates with me, because what do I say, like, every single stream, what's in our Twitter bio, etc. It's like, gamers first. I always try to put myself in the shoes of whoever's playing the game, and every decision that we make, we try and think of it as, well, is this actually going to benefit gamers, or is it going to hurt them? Is it going to turn them on or turn them off? Is this going to give them a bunch of magical memories and great feelings and really invigorate and enrich their lives? Or am I just, would this decision actually make them feel betrayed by me, or feel like I'm just trying to, like, rinse money out of them, etc., etc.? So if I can't separate myself from making the game and think, well, if I was holding the controller, would I feel great playing this or not? Then it's like, I think if you're not making decisions based on that kind of a metric, then of course, what's the alternative? Well, you're making decisions based on some other criteria, like maximizing profit, making as much money as possible. And sure, I want to make as much money as possible. It's a sense of perspective, and I think it comes down to, what is that initial question you're asking? Because in my mind, to maximize profit, to ensure steady flowing revenues from now until the end of time, or the end of my life, or the end of the business, the way I believe you do that is putting gamers first and building amazing products for them, and always surprising them, always entertaining them year on year on year on year. But if your mindset is, how do we make as much money as possible, and then downstream from that is, well, how do we in some way entertain gamers? Well, then it's sort of, you design things in a deceptive manner. You come at it from the perspective of, how can I sort of trick the gamer into thinking they're enjoying the experience, or provide just enough of an enjoyable experience that I can wrap that up with loot boxes, microtransactions, harvest their data, whatever it is. It's a very abusive way of making products, in my opinion, and it's very short-sighted. Obviously, you can make a ton of money with an alright title that's very exploitative, that is marketed correctly, but very quickly people will drop off and start to see through that. You'll break the bond of trust with people, and over time, it's over. I much prefer this way of doing things, and it's an absolute breath of fresh air to see other people coming at games development in a very, very similar manner. It's also interesting to see that they have a very large, dedicated support team of all these folks, volunteers and content creators, people who've supported on Patreon. Interestingly enough, I don't see a Patreon. Let me just see real quick. One second. Let me just see if I can find their Patreon. Maybe it's shut down at this point. Maybe they don't need it because they've gone to early access. Oh, there we go. Does it exist? Okay, I guess I think they probably shut it down then. Which, again, it's like, clearly they had the opportunity to just keep running it and keep making money. They've decided, in their minds, the right thing is just to move on from it and to now engage in generating revenue through game sales. So I'm definitely going to be jumping on board with this. I'm definitely going to play this at some point. Love to stream it. Maybe we can get the whole enemy team on board. But it's just, what a great thing to see that in this not E3 period that we're exiting, where we've had an absolute metric fuckload of major announcements that have all been just received as like, mid. Whatever. At no point did I hear of Battlebit throughout that period. At no point did any direct or showcase say, hey, the great, like, the Battlefield killer is here. And yet, here we are. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, actually. Sorry to ruin the flow of the stream real quick, but again, like I said, I'm trying to take this a bit ad hoc. A bit more casual. If I go to Steam charts, let's see, Battlebit Remastered. Okay, there we go. And let me search Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 2042. That is the latest one, right? Yeah. I mean, look at this. So, obviously Battlebit's just released, but, you know, it's an indie game with, like, no major budget. So the 24-hour peak of Battlebit was 52,000 people, which is also their all-time peak. So, you know, they're doing very good. And right now they're at 32,698 people playing. We go to Battlefield 2042, and, like, their all-time peak was 100,000. Well, they've hit 50% of Battlefield 2042, a game whose budget must have been in the £100 million range. They've managed to do 50% on the all-time peak. And right now they have, what, just over triple the number of people playing. Wow. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. So, fucking hats off to the Battlebit team. Very happy to see it. And we need to see more wins like this. And this is what I keep saying. Like, the forest of the games industry is absolutely burning down. Things are in a absolute state right now. But we're already starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're already starting to see people who are committed to making great products first, following their passions, being true to themselves, being true to their community, and through that, they're able to make a ton of money and make an amazing product. And I hope Battlebit is not... I hope this isn't a flash in the pan. I hope this sticks around and grows. And I also hope that they don't sell out. I hope that EA doesn't come along and acquire them, or a Tencent or Embracer. Obviously, they're making a shit ton of money. They're already getting offers coming through the door. And if they're not, it will be coming soon. But I hope they're able to stay independent. I think that's such an integral part to my vision of the future of gaming, is if we are going to save it, organizations like Enemy Team, Battlebit Team, etc. need to not be under the thumb of holding companies, need to have enough leverage that they can choose to say, hey, we're going to release on X, Y, and Z platforms. And if we're going to not do that, if we're going to be exclusively on, you know, platform X, PlayStation or Xbox, whatever, that's our choice, and that we are getting something great out of it, and that ultimately that's still going to be great for gamers and great for our community. If you are tied up in exclusivity deals, if you are absolutely dependent on publisher funding, or if you're just owned by a publisher, if you're owned by a holding company, as vast swathes of the industry now are, then you don't have the choice to make those decisions. You have no leverage, and you will be destroyed. You know, going back to previous coverage that we've done over the past few weeks, things like Antimatter Studios, similar trajectory. Antimatter came out with and helped make Rising Storm and Rising Storm 2, which are kind of Battlefield-esque games set in Vietnam. Amazing experiences, great games, managed to compete in the AAA shooter market over the past couple of years. They go and get acquired, and fast forward 3 years, you know, as of last week, they've pretty much all been let go. The whole studio's being shut down, multiple projects being shit-canned. And it's like, that's what happens when you are successful with a title like this and building a team from the ground up and pouring your heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into it. You get acquired and boom, like, you're either dead soon or you will be alive, but at what cost? You will be the living dead. And you will be forced to make decisions and sell out and sacrifice in ways that you couldn't imagine. So, fingers crossed, Battlebit stays the course. But let's move on. Let's jump into our next story, which is, apparently I've got more tabs covering Battlebit. I don't know what did I want to talk about in these? Okay, no, let's just move on. I thought this was an interesting story. This was from a couple of days ago as well. Streamer who spent $1 million on an esports team says esports is a terrible business. Everyone is losing a lot of money. And through my research into this, I mean, I've looked into, when we were building up Enemy Team, we were looking at, like, is there a possible route for this to be sort of a community lifestyle brand? And it's like, yes, possibly, and doing merch and all that. Like, possibly. I think we've got a cool logo. We've got a cool sort of aesthetic and a cool vision for the future of gaming. But can you start with that? Can you start with selling t-shirts? Like, probably not. So our logic is, let's make some fucking great games. Let's build up a community through that. And then naturally everything will follow. But through that research, I looked at organizations like FaZe, like 100 Thieves. Again, going back to the previous story, all people who have either like gone public or taken large sums of investment, and exactly at the point that they do that, they lose their edginess, they lose their spark, and they start immediately shifting towards like Totino's pizza rolls and sponsorship deals and tripping over themselves to hire women and becoming less offensive and less true to themselves and less true to their community. So what I noticed is already all of the like the competitive esports world does seem to be a massive bubble, and that bubble has been driven by like overinvestment and overconfidence in valuation, which I guess a little chappy here, Jeremy Wang, has fallen victim to. So he's known as Disguised Toast, and he shared some incisive thoughts on why the esports industry is one of the worst things you can get into. And it's not because his team sucks, although it does. It's because in spite of all the millions of dollars that have been poured into it, there is no money to be made. So he spent $500,000 on a Valorant pro team called DSG, and I guess they lost a lot. Okay, that sucks. And they had a walkout. Let's scroll down. You got here that the Overwatch League and Call of Duty League, which are both, you know, massive games with lots of people playing and lots of people watching, are facing challenges which are negatively impacting the operations and potentially the longevity of the leagues under the current business model, which I think is business speak for shit's fucked. And that those challenges may ultimately prove intractable. Oh dear. Let's see, the seemingly sudden troubles in two of the biggest esports operations point towards serious sustainability problems for both pro esports, in general. Activision and Riot quickly expressed their commitment to the long-term future of the pro leagues, but as you suspect, this guy is going like, nah, shit's fucked. His accountant said, we need to talk, we're not making money. And if you look at esports orgs in North America, they're either broke or going broke, and I do mean all of them. Well, you know, my perspective on this is, oh yeah, and here you go, then mentioning FaZe Clan, brands moving away from sponsorships and all this kind of shit. Brands are scared of esports because they invested millions and millions and then never got a significant return. And it's like, well, is that not the problem? Like, in my mind, the reason all this stuff rose up, and I can think back to like MLG back in the day, like Unreal MLG, Halo, etc. Esports was never like, it didn't start as a massive thing, obviously. It started as a grassroots thing, and it was viable because it was literally just the best of the best gamers who are already playing whatever it is, Unreal, Halo, you know, every day, just meeting up in locations and playing for, you know, a prize pot. And, you know, live streaming that, obviously that became more viable as the years went on. It really picked up with the rise of platforms like Twitch, and the ability for people just to actually, like, you know, get broadband connections and actually regularly stream with a good bit rate, etc. It's the money that was poured into it that has made it not viable. Like, it was absolutely viable. You know, we had esports for 2 decades almost without any major investment. And from memory, it really was around the turn of once we entered the 10s, and especially as about 10 years ago now, once we hit like the 15s, 20s, 2016, 2017, is when things blew up. And you had like 100 Thieves, for example. Let's just see. I believe 100 Thieves received a $100 million investment. Let's just see. 100 Thieves investment. Here we go. Yeah. So as an example, and this is from 2 years ago, 100 Thieves raised $60 million in a Series C funding round with a $500 million valuation for a team of dudes who like play video games and wear sponsored clothing and shit. And they've, you know, built this massive facility that they filled up with people, and then they had to fire a bunch of folks recently because it's not making any money. And it's like, yeah, maybe 100 Thieves, FaZe, DSG, whatever Disguised Toast, yeah, DSG's Valorant team. It's like, yeah, maybe a bunch of dudes playing video games while drinking Mountain Dew and saying, hey, I've got a keyboard, you should also buy this keyboard. Maybe that is only viable at a certain monetary level. And that if you go in and say, well, we value this at $500 million, and if you give us 100 million, we can scale up the operation. Well, in what way? How are you going to scale up guys playing video games while wearing branded stuff? How does that scale up any further? Did no one ask that question? Or did everybody just think, well, everyone's a gamer, and yes, when these guys play, we can fill a stadium full of gamers, and we can sell tickets, and we can sell the Mountain Dew, and we can make money. But what do we do beyond that? Nobody seems to have asked the question. They just thought, well, money in equals put money in and you will get more money out. How do you do that? That's the question. It's like invest in esports teams question mark profits. Literally the meme. That was the investment strategy of all these people. My point, the thing I'm more interested in, is the impact that this shit has had on the wider gaming world. The rise of esports has put a focus on competitive play, and that we all have to be competitive, and that the best way a game can be built is to lean into that competitive scene. This is where we saw things like Halo pivoting in Halo 5 towards being like entirely esports hyper competitive orientated and mimicking Call of Duty because that's a big esports title, and so on and so forth. Titles like Valorant have been built from the ground up to like siphon not Call of Duty, the Counter-Strike audience, and build it in such a way that it's more streamable, more watchable, that you can build teams up around it. Okay, but it's almost like what we've done is we've taken the meme of Final Destination, no items, that Smash Bros meme, and turned that into like games design ethos, where it's like all games now have to meet this competitive criteria so that the events, the competitions and whatnot. Jesus Christ, holy shit, my lighting just exploded. Oh my god. What the hell? What's going on? I've lost my remote. I need my remote. That's way too bright. Sorry guys. Stream fucked. Stream destroyed. Oh man, I can't find the remote. I'm just gonna turn the... I don't know why that happened. I'm just gonna turn the light off. I still look alright, right? Do I look okay? Yeah, that's fine. I can do this with one light. That's alright. What was I saying? Yeah, so it's basically had... Because all this money has been poured into it, and now there's intense pressure to grow the esports scene and to bring people into it because it has grown exponentially. Well, that's had this massively negative effect. It's almost like the pressure from that has put undue pressure on games designers to lean into the competitive scene, and that's made, in my opinion, gaming just less fun, because now it's all about winning. Now it's all about absolute mastery of your product. Hey, the guys in the competitive scene, they have to play 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day constantly to compete against one another. Well, you now have to as well. And the way that competitive matchmaking is set up is it's all about balance and putting the very best people against the very best people and the slightly less best people against the slightly less. But it means that you're always being put up against people that have been like algorithmically selected to basically be like your mirror image. Well, to me, that's actually not fun. Like, sometimes it's fun having an overwhelming force attacking you. Oftentimes, it's really fun being that overwhelming force. But if the context of the product is it's less about winning constantly, and it's more about having fun, so that everybody can enjoy it. And sure, you can provide those spaces where if you want to go do Final Destination, no items, one life, whatever. Okay, cool, you can do that. But when that becomes the foundation, the kind of ethos of the entire game, you alienate players. And so, I kind of find it funny that this stuff, the bubble is bursting on the esports world. It's like, great, because it's just, fundamentally, it's just not that interesting. It wasn't worth it. But hopefully this results in a kind of about course where games are going to become actually fun again. Like, they're not going to be totally focused on the hyper-competitive scene. So let's see. Oh, and also, this team also sucked. So that sucks for them. But I just think it's incredibly... It's an incredibly good thing to see this happening. I know a lot of people are losing money. I know a lot of this seems disastrous. But ultimately, I think this is a great thing. So, and hopefully it is. Anyway, moving on. Not a super exciting story. Not one that I'm totally invested in. But hey, it's a thing happening, and I hope it has a positive impact on what we're doing. Next story. Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser returns with new company, Absurd Ventures. Now, this is actually technically like not a news story because he filed for all this about 2 years ago, but it's only recently that the website and everything has dropped, announcing this formally. So yeah, Rockstar co-founder and creative director Dan Houser, who parted ways with GTA developer Rockstar in 2020, has formally unveiled Absurd Ventures, a media company established to create new IP across all platforms and formats. He took an extended break. There were rumblings he would return as he registered Absurd Venture in the US and the UK. The project's been unveiled with a focus on building narrative worlds, creating characters, and writing stories for a diverse variety of genres without regard to medium, although you've got to assume that video games are in there. As such, it'll set its sight on live action, animation, video games, interactive content, graphic novels, and scripted podcasts. What? That's odd. That's strange. We're building absurd adventures to create new universes and to tell great stories wherever and however we can, he said in a statement accompanying today's news. I have actually looked for that statement so I can pull more out of it, but everyone's just reporting on snippets of a statement. I can't find the fucking statement. So, I don't know, we'll go over to the website to see. I find this interesting because obviously, what have we covered repeatedly on the show, like week on week? It's major figures from the industry checking out or selling out completely. We've had Cliffy B and American McGee and others either leaving their studios or just leaving gaming altogether and saying, I can't continue to work in the development environment. It's burned me out. I don't see any positive future in it. Or we've seen guys like Joe Staten leaving, monstrous machines, corporate machines, and then jumping straight into like Netflix gaming. And so there's been very few people actually going their own way and not just becoming a part of another corporate entity, actually building their own thing and doing that self-funded, self-financed. Because we've covered in the last week or so things like TTK and what was the name? The not only Monsters, Firewalk Studios, but all of these entities are all like investment holding company orientated. And all of them have said, oh, well, we're going to retain creative control, but we have the revenue to be able to build a 50 to 100-man studio. And it's like, nobody's giving you the money to build a 100-man studio without complete control, including creative control over that product. As far as I can tell, I've looked at Company's House, and Absurd Ventures is entirely owned by Dan. So there's not a whole lot you can pull from this website other than it looks to be sort of edgy. You thought the culture was in crisis before. Like, we're here to disrupt shit. Sort of edgy, sort of weird, sort of absurd. If I go to feed, there's a lot of weird things happening here. I'll play this. I'm just going to mute it because I don't have my headphones on. It's kind of hard to understand what the fuck that they're selling here. It's just a bunch of like edgy shit and like eyeballs and like weird statements. I guess at a high level, it at least looks like they're trying to do something that is different. They're being kind of sarcastic and using parody and sort of weirdness and absurdism and abstract imagery. Man was born free, but everywhere he is in chains. It's like, okay, it would be weird for somebody to put that on their website and make that statement and then receive investment from Embracer Group, or to sign up and be part of the Tencent umbrella family. So there's almost no information on what this thing actually is. But what I do find interesting from it is he's taken a break. He's jumping back into the world of media and entertainment. He's not doing this with any kind of investment so far as I can tell, touch wood. And the way that this is being presented is like, we are trying to be counterculture, we are trying to be different, which is exactly what we want to do with Enemy Team. And also, as far as I can tell, this has all been set up. The registered office is very close to where I live. I could jump in my car and drive over there in short order. Not to like location dox myself, but like, I'm in England, I'm in the Northwest. I've got a Mancunian accent. I talk about Manchester all the time. So it's like, yes, I'm in this region. And so is Absurd Ventures. So I kind of want to get. I find this presentation a little bit. I don't know. I guess it's kind of fun. It's a bit. I don't want to say cringe because there's not enough going on here. The whole like, you thought the culture was in crisis before. I'm not so sure about it. It kind of feels a bit like, doing the unexpected. It feels like trying to be edgy without any kind of edginess. It's like, whoa, like we're crazy. And it's like, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I need to see more, but I would love to. But this is the thing. That's what I mean. Is I am intrigued. I am interested. I'd love to know more about this. I'd love to talk to the guy. Hey, they say doing the unexpected. The unexpected would be driving to their registered office and just banging on the door until they open it. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe after the stream, maybe I could live stream it. Yeah. How about this? I'm just gonna live stream me going to Dan's office and just trying to break in just to talk to him. Just go like super fan mode. Print out his yeah, get a t-shirt, print out his face on the shirt saying like I love you, and just bust down the door and just be like, I need to talk to you about Absurd Ventures. I might do that, maybe. Let's see. I don't know if that goes against Twitch's TOS. It might do. It might do. They've already racked up 4,000 plus followers on Twitter. Again, I think that's interesting. That says to you that just the very act of doing this is piquing interest. People are watching. People are looking. Heads are turning. I understand the tone. The world needs this rawness again. You know, and I think this is pretty... Like I said, I think this is pretty light in terms of doing edgy content or like an edgy raw presentation. But it is at least there somewhat. And people are picking up on that. So... here's one comment saying like, yeah. This I also do like to see. This guy, Alex Tech Plays, who's a progressive left, you know, gay flag, whatever. I don't see it. Unfortunately, this absurd stuff, I'm not hyped about it. Good luck with your future endeavors. And it's like, yeah, because doing that kind of stuff and not having a gay flag on your website immediately and not putting the usual spiel, which we've looked on tons of these super corporate games websites of them saying like, we're about being renegades, but also about being inclusive and friendly and loving and hugging everybody at all times and being super progressive. There's none of that. It's saying like, we need to be raw, we need to be edgy, we need to be different. Okay, cool. I'm interested. Let's hope it goes in the right direction. Now here we go. Redfall developer Arcane currently safe. Currently safe, says Microsoft. Studio chief Matt Booty said that Arcane would remain open. That is the plan right now. Which, talk about like corporate governance speech. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, but they might be shut down tomorrow. Is what what that says is we are reviewing options and we may completely obliterate them, and that process might actually already be in play. But the official overall plan is no, they're all good. They are hard at work on updates and continue content for Redfall. We want to be able to support them, to be able to keep working to deliver the game they had in mind. Like, what? Wouldn't that have been good? That exact sentence. Wouldn't that have been good to support them to make the game they had in mind before it was launched like a piece of shit? Also, what does that even mean? Because as we covered last week, what's been revealed from leaks and people leaving and people doing interviews and whatnot is that they didn't want to make the game. There was a general attitude and mood of like, they were sort of being forced to make Redfall and they were hoping that the Microsoft acquisition would free them from having to make it. And that's essentially what the studio was saying. People were like, we just want to not do this now. Can we move on? Microsoft turns around and goes, no, this is going to be like a flagship title. We're going to make this the centerpiece of our E3 presentation, and it has to be a success. You have to work on it. You know, fast forward a year and a bit, and look what's happened. So, bizarre decision-making. Absolutely bizarre. And as this article covers, the Booty notably skipped over Redfall. It wasn't shown in the Xbox Game Showcase, but they did say that Microsoft has turned the corner on first-party releases, which again, we talked about last week, that sort of, again, doesn't make any sense because you hyped up Redfall, you hyped up the acquisition as the biggest thing ever. This is a flagpole, a tentpole title. This is a tentpole title holding up the Xbox. This is going to be an integral part of the first-party lineup. It comes out and you say, yeah, it's kind of a 6 out of 10. Sometimes we drop the ball. Anyway, the future's going to be great because we acquired all these other studios and they're doing an amazing job. And it's like, how can we trust you? We've had years of failure from you guys. This was a colossal failure. This wasn't dropping the ball. This was putting the ball in like a fucking rail cannon and pointing it at the Earth's core and firing as hard as possible. Absolute disaster, right? So, hey, they've turned a corner though. Apparently the future is bright. And they've said, look, when we acquire studios, there's games that are in development and we don't really know what's going on. Hey, maybe they're early, maybe they're not being conceived. We need to improve on engaging in those games that are midway through production when they become a part of Xbox. We didn't do a good job early on in engaging with them to help them understand what it means to be part of Xbox and part of first party and use some of our internal resources. Yada yada yada. We left them to go work on the game, but that just doesn't line up with what everybody has said through these other articles saying, like, no, we didn't want to work on the game. And if you just left them to work on it, why not just put that as like a little thing in the showcase? Why was that then the central? That was the biggest thing last year. Was like, hey, this is going to be a huge deal. This is like Left 4 Dead killer territory. As they say, how is Redfall doing now? It was a miss, but how much of a miss? Well, it's getting good play on Xbox Game Pass. And what did I say during our live coverage of the Xbox showcase? Notice how they're constantly pushing Game Pass, constantly pushing Game Pass. That is the USP, that is the selling point for Xbox now. Not that they have necessarily amazing games. Not that they even have a great first-party lineup. They have a lot of first-party games, but hey, some of them are 6 out of 10s. Not even that they have all that many exclusives, and not even that the Xbox itself is all that great a platform, because like we saw with games like Redfall, and as we're seeing now with games like Starfield, they're going to launch at 30 FPS and be like buggy and broke and potentially filled with microtransactions. Okay, so you've got all that negative shit. What's the USP with Xbox? Well, once you buy it, you get a load of games for free. Okay. So you have like a Netflix-esque subscription service where every month I get some stuff of varying quality, generally speaking, not particularly high quality, hyped, PR'd, spun by the press to be, you know, the second coming of Jesus. You play it and you go, this isn't amazing, but I didn't pay for it. I am paying for it because I had to buy an Xbox and purchase the subscription, the Xbox Game Pass. But the game is free, so I can't judge it all that hard. And it's like, and this is really the point, like, what a terrible vision for the future of gaming that, like with Netflix, you go, well, I'm only paying a couple of quid a month for it. Yes, most of Netflix sucks, but I do get a lot of content. I get some golden oldies. I can watch Always Sunny or Friends or The Office or whatever. Most of the new stuff is shit. But hey, I'm not paying all that much for it, so you don't have that same level of gypped feeling as if you would if you spent £70 on Redfall or hundreds of pounds on several games and they're all complete dog shit. That the sting of that experience is lessened when it's actually only 70 quid a year through a subscription service. But that just enables and allows them to put in less effort, to lower the bar of quality. How is that a good thing for any of us? So I didn't enjoy that. I mean, the Xbox showcase I didn't enjoy, but I really didn't like how it was just Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass, because they're just revealing what they value. The fact that they're not showing how they're fixing Redfall, they're not telling us how they're going to really improve Halo Infinite. I know the Season 4 trailer just dropped recently, but it doesn't fix any of the fundamental problems. It's not the paradigm shift that IP needs to bring all of us Halo gamers back and to onboard new people. Does it not betray what their intentions are when all of that stuff is just pushed to the side, and instead what is front-loaded is, we keep buying people who are amazing, who made great stuff in the past. Oh, and by the way, you can play all their stuff for free in the future. Okay. So people who did a good job 5, 10, 15 years ago, in some cases, are going to give you games for free in the next 2-3 years on a platform that can just about do 30 FPS for the average title. You know, this is not, it would be crazy if anybody suggested we're in any kind of a golden age or any kind of incredible age. And I know that Jeff Keighley and everybody else will say every summer showcase, every direct, every event, it's gaming is getting bigger and better, the better graphics, larger environments, blah, blah, blah. And you go, well, actually, the USP throughout all of this is most of these games are free. They're not, but they appear to be. Okay, great. What an amazing future to look forwards to. More underwhelming, over-promised experiences given to you for free. And of course, something has to subsidize that, which is we need to fire more of us. We need to let go more of our staff. We need to work the existing staff harder. We need to outsource more and more work to the Far East so that we can have a 3,000 person team, but it's mostly made up of people in like Java. True. Actually happening. Look at the credits of most games. Most of the work is being done out there now. And people wonder, why is the quality going down? It's that. It's penny pinching. Why did Sega fire 100 people from Relic Entertainment just before Company of Heroes 3 drops on consoles to increase the profit margin. Again, Antimatter Games. Why did, not Toadman, EG7, why did they shut down the studio? Because they said in their investor meeting, in their press release for it, they went, well, if we fire them, that's a massive reduction in expenditure. We keep the IP and everything they were working on, but in turn, we essentially make money by doing it. Great. That's the principal decision-making process that's driving the industry. Not enemy teams gamers first, not the Battlebit Studios logic of, would I play this and would I enjoy it? None of that. It's just, can we make more money? Which I know is a very trite point to say at this point. Of course, this is how everybody's operating. But again, I like to paint visions of the future. Plot this on a graph. Think about the trajectory of where we're heading. If companies like Microsoft are going to constantly acquire studios like Arcane, technically in that case it was, Bethesda ZeniMax, but if they're going to constantly acquire studios, shout from the rooftops that what they're making is the best thing since sliced bread, and it's going to be absolutely the reason for you to buy our platform, and you're going to get it for free through Game Pass. Then it comes out and it's a buggy, broken piece of shit that none of the staff wanted to work on. They hemorrhage that staff, and then what do they then in turn say? They go, hey, sometimes it's a hit and a miss. But don't worry, it's getting good play on Game Pass. It's like, okay, yeah, wow, like the 100 million, however many it is, the massive million number figure of people who have Game Pass will go, yeah, well, fuck it, I may as well try it out. It's free. That's why I've paid for this subscription service. And it's going to be that process endlessly. It's going to be hype, disappointment, fuck it, I'll play it on Game Pass. That will somehow be spun as a positive by the people in charge. Rinse and repeat. I don't see that as a positive future. So we don't want to engage in that. I'd love to get our games out on Xbox, no doubt. We want to give our products to as many people as possible, and we would encourage any other studio to do the same. But should you engage in things like Game Pass, should you be courting the attention of these companies for acquisition? If you want to die, like if you're suicidal, if you want to see all of your hard work, blood, sweat, and tears completely annihilated, corrupted, and warped into a form that is completely ugly and unappealing to absolutely everybody, then yeah, go for it. Absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. All right, let's keep going. Let's hit up, let's get to the VR. Yeah, and here we reach the VR section of the episode. And I'm going to be positive for once. I'm actually going to be positive. So this is from Upload VR. This is just a list of the new VR games and releases for June 2023 on PSVR 2, Quest, and more. And as we said, the Upload Showcase, Summer Showcase that we reacted to last week, actually I think was the best showcase of the not E3 period. It was great. It was a little long. There was a lot of games. But hey, that's a problem VR has had, is content, products. And there was a lot of interesting games in there. A lot of stuff we've seen before. A lot of derivative stuff, but there was enough things in there that made us go like, ooh, wow. Compare that to the Winter Showcase. There's a chasm between the two in terms of like quality, engaging products, stuff that's actually going to get you hyped. And so, looking at this, what's actually dropping? We've got We Are One, which has cool time travel mechanics. Killer Frequency from Team 17, so I have to naturally just be like, boo, don't like them. Budget Cuts is getting a remaster, or, an ultimate version, fine. Got No More Rainbows, Battle Talent, I don't know, I think this was, well, it's a rogue. Let's just take a look at it real quick. Yeah, I think this was in the showcase. Kind of Souls-like, roguelike, looks okay. I think they should have leaned into a graphical style that wasn't trying to be high quality, because it ends up just looking meh. Same with the tennis game, a bit meh. But as we go through, it's just, look how much content. I'm not going to go through every single thing, but a lot of products, a lot of games dropping. And some of them are really good, some of them are very interesting. Some of them not so much, obviously. But it just keeps going, and going, and going. And this is just June. Hubris, a lot of people are hyped for Hubris. I seriously have my doubts for this. Like, it does look nice, but in terms of, like, actual, like, what do you do gameplay, you can just skip through and it's like, a lot of walking, bit of combat, a lot of swimming, just not a whole lot of action. Oh wow, nice stuff like that. Like, okay, cool. But again, maybe it doesn't matter. It's like, look, we're getting games. That was the Doom kind of Eternal kind of ripoff. I say ripoff, it's an interpretation of clearly of like the Doom Eternal kind of gameplay setup. But it looks alright. At least it's something, and at least it's fast-paced VR gameplay. We like that. Look at Gunday, look at Project Web. So this to me is all positive stuff. That what I've been talking about for months now is I think VR might very well be on a downwards trajectory. The bubble has burst, clearly. It has not gone the way any of us thought it would. And a big part of that has been the technology's not been great. It's been too expensive, too unwieldy, and there's not been enough momentum in terms of people acquiring the hardware to justify developers en masse working on VR products. But also on a project by project basis, you're very limited budget wise. You're not going to put tens of millions into a single VR project because almost no VR game has made tens of millions. Similarly, resource wise in terms of the platform, even if you have a high-powered PC game, VR is an expensive thing to run. If you're making games for the Quest, Quest 2, even Quest 3, you're dealing with mobile phone architecture strapped to somebody's face. You can't do all that much. I think the silver lining through doing a lot of research into this and seeing the reaction to Project Web being quite young is that clearly the VR market is currently being propped up and adopted, and if it has any future, it's in a much younger market. If you're 30 or over and you're not into VR already, I don't think you're getting into VR. But there's a ton of kids playing Gorilla Tag and Among Us and are hungry for Quest 2 content. Half of the comments that we got on our Project Web video was, is this coming to App Lab? Can it come out on Quest 2? Etc, etc. And from profiles, the writing style, everything spoke to people who are probably on the younger end of the spectrum. These were not mature comments, let's put it that way. And a lot of people asking for it for free, and it's like, yeah, like kids are going to ask for stuff for free because they don't have their own disposable income. Makes sense. So this to me is the positive, is we are now starting to see content coming. We are seeing a focus on products for that younger gen, of which we're trying to aim towards as well, while also thinking about the future. Things like Gunday are probably for a more mature audience. But it's all to say, like, the trajectory right now, I think it's still going downwards, but maybe it's leveling off. Apple VR is not what we thought it would be. Quest 3 looks like it could be pretty good. PSVR 2 is not doing anywhere near as good as it should do, but it is doing better than people expected and has been reported. I think it needs a long way to go, but if we compare VR today to, say, mobile phones in the mid-90s, like mobile phones in the 90s were blocky, chunky, you needed a power pack. They were very expensive. The only people who had them was people who were super enthusiastic for that, and generally that was very rich people or people in business. Businesses were buying these things to enable their staff to work more efficiently. If you'd said to anybody back then, hey, this big chunky thing with 20 minutes of battery life that barely works, that's going to be mass adopted very soon, everybody would go, well, no, it's not, because it isn't mass adopted now. Why would that suddenly change? And what changed was the technology improved. And when the technology improved and became more accessible and the price point went down and the device itself was then able to do more stuff, everyone can remember the Nokia T610s having Snake on them. At least I can remember. Probably a lot of people probably can't remember that because they didn't exist then, but I do. And it's like that was a paradigm shift. And then fast forward 10 years or so into 2007, and the iPhone is again another paradigm shift. So these momentum gates it took a long time to hit them, but those momentum gates of enough people buying this thing so we can reinvest, improve the technology, improve the content, etc., etc., unlocks the next opening up of the market, and so on and so forth. So right now, I don't think VR's dead. The bubble burst, but I'm sure there was a mobile phone bubble burst. I mean, I'd have to look into it, but there's been plenty of forms of technology that we thought would blow up. They didn't quite, and it just took a bit longer for them to become mass adopted. I think cell phones is a good example. It took the iPhone to really take it to the next level. So if that's what we're waiting for, we just need to keep things ticking along, keep investing in that younger market. And I think it's, obviously there is an element of like, shit, there's a lot of competition. As somebody who's working in VR, it's like, wow, that's a lot of games to compete with. But it's not all, for me, it's not all bad. Like, I need good content in to some degree to be coming out so that people believe there's a future in VR. I just need to make sure the enemy team makes the best content, which should be Project Web, which should be Gun Day, and our other ideas. So this is great foundational stuff, and this kind of ties into meta also reducing and adds to my point. Meta reducing Quest 2 and 3's minimum age from 13 to 10 years old. I think this is kicking in. Yeah, so this will be done for Quest 2, and it will apply to Quest 3, which launches in autumn, sometime Q3, Q4 of this year, so a couple of months' time, actually. They say Quest accounts for children aged 10, 11, and 12 will have to be set up and managed by a parent, but they will be able to play. When the child turns 13, their accounts become a teen account, managed by the child, but they still have the parental controls like through mobile. And Quest 3 is going to have more parental controls built in. As it says here, they're hoping that it will be the holiday gift of choice for millions of children later this year. Doing a bit of research, I saw this with, there was a massive spike in Gorilla Tag players last Christmas. And it's like, well, where did that come about? It's because a load of kids got Quest 2s for Christmas and immediately jumped onto the very fun multiplayer, free-to-play game that they can easily play with all their friends or play with people online, which has proximity chat. And it's just like a fun, it's a playground space, but with your, but you can play in your living room. So that's what I think everybody's strategy is shifting towards. It's clearly what Meta's strategy is shifting towards. They're going, right, we've tried the whole, what would you call it, like, the pro gamer willing to spend $5,000 on the amazing PC and the headset to completely reconfigure their play space to be able to play PC games with a VR headset on. And there just aren't enough people with that amount of disposable income, time, and just tolerance for the overall VR experience to justify that being essentially the central tentpole of the entire medium. There just isn't. The shift towards lower grade but more easily accessible, easier to run, easier to use headsets clearly aligns with, like, kids can adopt anything and adapt to anything. They're not coming in with aspirations of playing in a super high-tech AAA Ready Player One Matrix style environment because they don't have that foundation in their heads. They don't know what those films are. They don't know what those experiences are. They don't have those expectations. They just want to play something fun. And so obviously Meta's shifting towards let's onboard people as young as possible, because if you're 29 years old and you put a VR headset on for the first time, you're probably going to get motion sickness. You're probably going to feel disorientated. Why? Because you've got like an old dying brain. Like you're over the hump. You're now on the steady decline towards death where things become harder and harder to learn. Don't teach an old dog new tricks. That is the case. Like, put a VR headset on somebody who's 50 years old and see them completely struggle and be completely uninterested. They might see the potential of it, but they're just not going to get into it. I think we've sounded that point out now for the last couple of years. So Meta's shifting towards, if we can have 8-year-olds put a headset on and struggle to play it, but get used to it because they have extreme neuroplasticity, they're super open to learning. Hey, when they're 18, 28, 38, they're going to be able to use this stuff flawlessly, and it's going to be a natural part of their life. It's going to be a natural part of gaming or work or interacting with people. Will be having ever improving headsets on their face, projecting information into their skulls, projecting information out, also letting Meta like track what they're doing, what their emotions are, etc. There's shady stuff in there as well. But that's clearly the future of VR. That's what I believe, and that's why we're sort of aiming towards Project Web at this point, because it's resonated with the younger market who are hungry for like fast-paced, exciting VR content, and the best they get is Gorilla Tag. And not to shit on that game, I think it's a great game, I think they've done a great job, but it's pretty rudimentary, it's pretty limited in what experiences you can get. I think that audience is gonna, as they grow, as they continue to grow, are gonna be hungry for like more bombastic, more engaging, more competitive, more intense content. Well, we want to be there for them. So it's interesting to see that we are getting an increase of content. The hardware is getting better, and the younger audience is the audience that's growing faster than any other. Interesting stuff. So I don't know. The future is the children. They always say that the future is our children. Well, with VR, I think it's entirely running on kids at this point. Like it's got to be early adopting kids. They're the ones that are going to keep VR alive for the time being, and they're going to be the future. So there we go. On the flip side, and I think probably I think this is going to be our last story of the day, and then I'll wrap things up. On the flip side, console gaming, major L's, as always, non-stop L's for the rest of the gaming world. 60 FPS console games will become increasingly rare. Analysts warn gamers. And this is obviously following on from, like, every game recently. Redfield. Starfield and Redfall both being 30 FPS locked titles, along with a bunch of others on other platforms. All being locked and not reaching 60 FPS has got people upset. So Digital Foundry, part of Eurogamer, right, have gone and done a bunch of tests, and they've done an analysis and said, look, this is designed for object permanence. Essentially, to summarize, it's like, look, everyone's building bigger and better worlds at higher graphic fidelity. That all costs resource at runtime to be able to render, and any game dev will tell you the quickest way to boost performance is to reduce FPS, to cap FPS, and to, oftentimes cap resolution as well. We had to do this with Unbox. When we ported it to console platforms, it ran like shit, so we capped it down to 30. Because, hey, what's our excuse for doing it? Well, that was the previous fucking gen. 60 FPS wasn't the standard. Also, we were an indie team, self-funded, getting absolutely wrecked by our own publisher. It wasn't good time, so we had to make some hard decisions, alright? We didn't have holding company acquisition money backing us. But then when it came to the Switch, not only was it capped at 30 FPS, we had to drop the standard resolution at launch. We later patched it to raise it back up, because the game just didn't run particularly well, and we were really under a lot of pressure. And a very, very quick fix was just reduce those two numbers, and now at least the game runs. Not great, but it runs in a stable fashion. Well, on a much, much, much larger scale with these AAA games, it's the same deal. That your console platforms are limited in what they can do. You're also having to build games, not just to run today, but run for the entire life cycle of that console. And with a game like Starfield or whatever, it's going to be around for years, right? So they have to make tough decisions. They have to make these hard calls. And if you want to have massive worlds, which of incredible graphics, where you can see you want to see like the pores on someone's skin and see their nostril hairs and shit, while also tracking all these different items and AI shooting at you and whatnot. Well, something's got to give. You can't have everything. You can't have your cake and eat it on a limited performance platform. And so we're now re-entering the fucking era of 30 FPS. With my point really being like, I completely get why it's happening, but isn't it insane that we've just gone through years of being hyped up for these new platforms, with the central point being ultimate power, like this thing will be able to run 4K graphics and 60 FPS. 60 FPS has been the selling point for the past couple of E3s. I mean, even if we go to, if we go back to this tweet that I found of Aaron Greenberg, who we mentioned previously, VP of Xbox Games Marketing. He was talking, and this was, I can't remember what this was in relation to. I think this was them talking about the Xbox hardware announcement. And he said 60 FPS will be the standard output, but the architecture allows us to support up to 120 FPS. And so you just 2-3 years ago, you go, wow, like they're setting the standard at 60. Some games will be 30, no doubt. That's what's kind of baked in there in that corporate speech. And he says in another tweet, like, we're not forcing people to run at 60, but the standard benchmark is 60, but some games will be 120. And you go, holy shit, this is going to be awesome. Because not only are we getting high quality visuals, it's also going to run very well. Loading screens are a thing of the past. The future is bright, right? That's what this picture is being painted to you. This is what you are being sold. This is why you are going to go out and buy $500+ of console controllers, games, peripherals, etc. Well, you fast forward 2-3 years, and two of the major titles that have dropped recently, Redfall and soon Starfield, both 30 FPS capped, with very little likelihood of that ever changing. And you go, well, we were, again, completely lied to. It's become very normal. I don't think this is a particularly revelatory point. This is the normal operating procedure of all these businesses. But again, put down a trajectory. You're seeing so many people, so many gamers in comment sections and message boards, Discords, all talking about how it's impossible to get hyped for an amazing trailer, for an amazing showcase now, because just the sting of all these lies, all of this deception, all of these disappointments, it's just weighing you down. It immediately taints everything you look at. Even things you want to like, you're going in with a sort of distrust of your own instincts, like a distrust of your own tastes, because you go, I like this, but my tummy's rumbling, like my guts are telling me this is not going to end well. So, something's got to give. At some point, this is going to cease to work in a major way. And I do think, to go back to my previous point, I believe this is why we are seeing such a push of things like Xbox Games Pass, is that sort of an answer to, well, we've let everyone down and disappointed them so much. Why don't we just, in a certain sense, not charge them any money? And that sort of somewhat absolves us of criticism. Well, that's a terrible solution to the problem. Their solution to the problem of our games are not going well and we are consistently disappointing our audience. Their answer has been, well, let's just lower the bar. Much the same as, hey, we're not making enough money. Should we invest in our studio? Should we invest in an Antimatter Games to improve what they're doing? Or should we just fire them and shut the studio down to make more money? Yeah, do that. Lower the bar to increase the amount of money that we make. Well, that's an entirely, in my mind, I don't know if a destructive way of... I don't know if that's destructive decision-making. I don't know if that's what other people would call it, but in my mind it is. Even though it seems at face value like we're doing the right decision so that the whole ship doesn't sink, or we're making this decision to make games more accessible to more people. It sounds positive, but again, you've just got to think, well, where does that lead you to? If it constantly is a cycle of disappointment, reduction of quality, broken promises, increased in distrust, where does that get you eventually? It results in an entire industry of subpar products that people are both unwilling to pay for, but also unwilling to play for any amount of time, and unwilling to get hyped for in the future. Not great. So it's good. The silver linings here are seeing studios like Battlebit, Battlebit Remastered, seeing all of these VR studios rising up, and even Dan Houser. I guess that's the theme of this stream is, hey, there is an independent scene that you wouldn't call indie, because you wouldn't call guys like Dan Houser indie. I don't know if I'd call this Battlebit game even necessarily that indie. That's not how they seem to be presenting themselves. It's independent seems to be more important. Like, indie really does mean a specific subset of the established games industry. Independent, like Enemy Team, Battlebit, Dan, etc., we all seem to be moving in a direction and a realization of, yeah, signing the deal with the devil gets you a lot of stuff today, and a lot of pain tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, and it's essentially selling your soul. The only way to be creatively fulfilled, to make money, and to meet the expectations and criteria of the gamers is to do it yourself, and to not let other people come in and control what you're doing. So that's the silver lining, is many are making bad decisions, but a small few are making great decisions, and let's hope they continue. And let's hope we're able to continue doing that as well. So this has been the Enemy Stream. Thanks a lot for watching. If you want to watch replay clips, etc., head over to our YouTube. Just search Enemy Team Games on YouTube. You can also follow us on TikTok, Twitter, where we post game updates, announcements. We'll be putting up a lot more stuff on Project Web very shortly, which is our Spider-Man multiplayer VR game, which is going very well, I might add. Gained a lot of followers from that. That's been very nice. Great to see that reception, and the work that we're doing development-wise is going to make it that much of a better game. Alongside, and Jack's still working on games like Gunday, which is like John Wick in VR. It's amazing. So things are going pretty good. I don't know necessarily what the format of the Enemy Stream is going to be moving forwards. The format's probably going to remain the same, this kind of news-orientated, somewhat loose, often meandering format. In terms of time frames, I've been talking about maybe shifting the time earlier. I also might shift to twice a week, but give myself more room to actually just play games and comment on them like Battlebit. I'm not sure. I'm taking it one step at a time. Like I said, the past 2 weeks have been very iffy for us. We've had a lot of challenges in our personal lives. I'm only just back home. Michael's still needing to go to the hospital for various things, but he's fine. He's doing great. But we're just trying to get back into the flow of things. We're facing a lot of challenges, but ultimately there's a lot of good things going on. We're positive about the future. We've got a great game. We just need to keep at it. As Jack always says to me, like, our problem is just money. We just need time to make money, to make this a more sustainable operation. So I can't give an exact roadmap of what happens next, but we're just going to keep throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks, basically. Keep doing the shows, keep putting out this gaming content, and we'll take it from there. It's exciting times. Like, I'm trying to stay positive. There's been a lot of stuff, like I said, I'm not going to go into details, but a lot of stuff weighing us down, but we're we've been pelted with lemonades, and we're not complaining about it. We're not going, oh, stop fucking hitting me with lemons. It's like pelted with lemons, but we're turning it into lemonade. That's the strat, basically. So I'll end my ramble here. Thanks a lot for watching the enemy stream. I will be back, most likely usual time on Wednesday. I'm just going to stick to 3 p.m. for now. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.